Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey champions, welcome back into the Champion Within podcast. I am really excited for you to learn more about my guest today. I've been looking into LinkedIn and some of the things that he's been doing, and I've already been learning from him. So I know that you are going to be stealing some of these things no matter where you are. If you're a student athlete, a parent of an athlete, maybe you're out there running a business, he has a lot of things to offer you. And I'm just going to be honest, he's way younger than me, but I'm already learning. I think that's valuable. You know, I've heard people sometimes say, you know, that you need to be doing this, that, or the other thing. And I disagree. When I pivoted and started my business, I had no clue what I was doing. And I look to the people who are currently in college or, you know, doing the thing real time, learning the fresh new things. And no offense to my OGs out there, you got a lot to offer too, but I have learned more from the people who are, you know, in it right now and fresh ideas is what I'm going to call it. Today's guest is Will Ryan. He and I connected on LinkedIn. You may have to correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe someone else tagged you or something. I forget exactly how I saw your profile, but we're going to jump right into it. Will, how are you today?
I'm good, Kate. Thank you for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your journey. I do have your bio, of course, and I will share that in the show notes and everyone will be able to connect with Will. But Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, both student athlete and your professional side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently a student at Lebanon Valley College. I'm actually going into my senior year in a couple weeks here. So that's pretty exciting. And I play football there as well. I'm a tight end. And I did walk on the basketball team as well for a year. So that was a really cool experience for me. You know, I met some of my, closest boys there. So that was really, a cool opportunity for me. And then on the business side of things, we started a company called Media Icon. It's a social media and marketing agency that helps grow personal and professional brands online. You know, one of my best friends growing up, Tanner Maddox, he's the CEO. He's currently the quarterback at Villanova. He's brought me along with, all of his, business adventures throughout the years. We've been doing business stuff probably for, I don't know, the past 5-6 years together, ever since, middle of high school. So, yeah, I mean, it's, staying busy and keeping my brain moving and active all the time and, trying new things. Like you said, I'm young, so I have a lot of opportunity and time to fail now and figure it out. So that's the way I like to, go about it.
Will, there are so many things that I want to talk about just from that first response, and I love all of it. Wow, where do I even begin? Let's go back a little bit. Did you go to high school? What's the CEO's name again? Give it to me.
Tanner Maddox.
Tanner Maddox. Did you and Tanner go to high school together? How did you meet?
Yeah, so he went to a local high school right by me, but our schools were really small. Only my high school team had a football team, so they merged with us.
Okay.
So we met through football, and we really became super close through that. He was throwing touchdowns to me on Friday nights, and it had just followed through onto the business side of things.
Yeah.
Our relationship has definitely grown over the years. I appreciate everything he's been able to do for me and my family as well.
Really cool. I got to tell you that when I have hired people within my business, whether it's someone who comes on in a part-time, full-time capacity, or if they help me do something like launch the podcast, do different things, I really lean towards student athletes. I don't know if it's because I was an athlete and played sports, the work I do, but I really just think athletes have a different level of commitment, to be quite honest, that they go all in. I loved where you said that you have the opportunity to fail now, to learn all of these things. I would love to say to my listeners to keep doing that. It doesn't matter how old you are, keep being willing to try it. Hearing that he was throwing you touchdown passes and now you guys are, out there in the business world, like scoring touchdowns, so to speak. So what exactly do you do in your business for people?
Yeah, so we help them, grow their social media presence online. Earlier, I said we're a social media marketing agency. I like to slash that. Our main focus is really social media, and obviously, my whole generation, it's all we've grown up with, and that's just the way the world's moving towards the digital age that we're already in. And who better to learn from and to work with than a kid like me and my team and our team here. Who's done it our whole lives. We know it like the back of our hand.
Good point. I love that point because it's really just been a part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really valuable piece, I think, because I'll just admit it wasn't obviously a part of who I am. Gen X on the end side, those who are trying to figure out how old I am. But I really think that gives you that unique view that the rest of us need. We're just out here like, how the heck do we do this? So when you do work with someone, you and Tanner and the whole group together, what do you do? Do you go and do an audit of what they're doing currently? I see your stuff on LinkedIn, and I think it's really cool, the tips that you're giving. If someone came to you guys, what does it look like?
Yeah, so we really help them with all kinds of different strategy, right? So we'll go in, we'll take a look at their analytics and basically just do a breakdown with our team of, this is where they're at and this is where we think they can get based on X, Y, and Z. So it's different for every client, obviously, or partnership, I should say. We don't like using client because we're really working with them, not for them. We come up with the strategy, and obviously we do work for them outside of that, but we really just like to dive into different ways that we can really grow their brand, whether it's through their social media or through search engine optimization or helping them build out their website. And like I said before, each client's different, so everyone's going to have different needs, but really just to decide the avenue that we should approach with them and go from there.
You put something on LinkedIn. You've been putting a lot of great things up always, but recently I've been noticing some things that you're just keeping it real, saying it's not the algorithm, it's you. You're mediocre, your content's mediocre. And I was like, he's not wrong. And there's so many people out there on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places saying, do this. These are the lines you need to use. How do you help someone navigate through that and really become their own authentic voice? If you could give someone maybe one tip or maybe you have a story of a client that it was successful for.
We tell all of our partnerships all the time, it's you're going to be the brand, you're going to be the voice, and it's just our job to really help you get there. So I guess my generation calls it fake. The faker you are on social media, people can sense that, right? So the more authentic you are and the more real you are, that people can relate to and understand that not everything's going to be perfect and not everything is going to happen instantly, right? It's a process and it takes time, just like anything. So we really just like to let our partnerships know that this is really going to be a test and see if you're made for this and if this is the way that you should be going with things. And I think just having that real approach allows people to really connect. And that's where partnerships and business and really anything comes from. People buy and sell from who they trust. And if you can really, build that real factor, even through your websites or your posts or social media, whatever it may be, people are going to trust you.
I love that. And it's so true. People can just smell that like fake vibe that you're putting out into the world. It's funny when you were saying that, I was thinking of, I'm always like, all right, I got to grab some content here, there. It's just part of what I do within my work. And sometimes I'll admit, I don't really like that when I'm out somewhere presenting to a group, no matter what kind of presentation it is. I have my content creator people with me and they're taking videos, pictures. That's so much better for me because then I don't have to deal with it. But I know that people do want to see, hey, here's me at the gym. Here's me, like little like pieces of it. I'll admit, I hate doing some of that because I'm like, I don't think people care. Ironically, I was at the gym and I'm like, let me just grab something quick here because I think I was talking about, I don't know, something with like movement and your mindset and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh my God, this is messing up the flow of my workout. So I didn't even realize I had my phone still on video and I'm like the gym person that just like tosses their phone. So I was like about to do laps and I like took it out of my pocket and kind of just tossed it down next to my water bottle. Later I saw it and I'm like, oh my God. And it went off. It was like maybe 10 seconds. So I ended up seeing something like this is like real facts about me kind of thing. I don't know, on Instagram. I put this little like video. Let's just see what happens here because I don't really have time for this other content. And I didn't, my content people had great stuff, but I just was like doing something quick. So I put it up and it got a ton of views. People liking it. I'm like almost trying too hard. Do you find that with your clients that sometimes they're making it too hard sometimes?
Absolutely. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, right? It's the more simple and like I said, the more real you can be, the more people will be able to relate, So if, I don't know if you're ever scrolling your feed and you see, people in these, giant penthouses with the nicest cars and like that's cool to see, but I can't relate to that. A lot of people I know can't relate to that. So, the more real you are, in your posts or even in your life, you're gonna, automatically grow that following, whether it's for example, I was scrolling on TikTok last night before bed, and there's this one gym influencer I love. I'm gonna butcher the tag, so I won't even say it.
Okay.
But he really just goes on and is just straight up and doesn't beat around the bush at all. He just tells you how it is, tells you what you need to be doing to lose weight and like what he did in his journey and how he failed before and where he went wrong. And I admire that just because it's real. It's the
Exactly.
the best word to use for it, honestly. He's just he can explain it in a way that everyone can relate to, and everyone's kind of been in his shoes, and he understands that, and he understands everyone's not where he is now, but he knows he's just a regular dude. He treats it like everyone is just like him, and then everyone, again, like I said, can relate to that. So that's how he built his following.
Such a great point because we do see a lot of that on social media. And of course, it's like, wow, look at those things.
Hmm.
But then you're like, I could never do that. So you're not going to, like you said before, you have to trust this person and think this is a person that I can relate to. And that would be really hard when I'm thinking about the mindset work I do for people to think that that's even a possibility. And who knows, down the line, you could be super successful. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but it's not relatable for people. And I think that's a really important piece that you just mentioned there. We're going to kind of jump all over the place here. When you're a student athlete and you're working on a business, what's the hardest part here for you? Or does it complement, the schedules that you do have?
To be completely honest with you, I enjoy it. I enjoy the grind. It's always been, instilled with me since I was young and, just all the way up that everything is earned. Nothing's going to be given to you, whether that's in sports and life and in business. So just, knowing that I have my schedule mapped out throughout the day and I know where I need to be and know what I need to be doing, it keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. And, it
Right.
allows me to, be successful and feel like, that I accomplished something at the end of the day. Whether it's small tasks, big tasks, being able to study for tests or write proposals, whatever that may be. I get bored, just sitting around all day. And, it's nice to take a break every once in a while, but I really do enjoy, the hustle and, being out there and being on calls and, jumping around from, classes, go right to practice. I enjoy it. I really do.
Well, what do championship teams, standout students, and elite companies all have in common? A trained mindset. The Champion Within programs aren't fluff. They're mental performance blueprints that build focus, resilience, confidence, and clarity when it counts. Now is the time to set this up. Not next season, not next quarter, now, when the pressure is real and the habits are forming. Whether you're on the field, the courts, in the classroom, or leading a boardroom, your people need transformation and mindset training. Let's partner. Let's co-create this. Let's build the mindset that fuels the next level. Schedule a quick call. Just go to the show notes after the podcast and use the link. Let's design the exact experience your people need because they already have the talent. Now we build the belief. Would you say that your skills as an athlete have helped you when you're jumping on those calls and when you're trying to manage it all?
Absolutely. I think, just the determination to, be able to wake up for, at 5 a.m. to go to 6 a.m. lift in the off season for football. It helps me build that schedule and, being able to talk to people and, being a leader and, in my community and on my team, and with our team here at Media Icon. I think just, those traits carry over through anything in life.
Hmm.
I think it just, kind of represents, the kind of people that, we're working with and the people that we're striving to be as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just, the hard work that, is, has gotten me to this point. It's something that I admire from, a lot of my mentors and people I look up to. And it's stuff I'm trying to emulate in my life.
Give me one skill that you think is something that is your strongest and that you really credit being an athlete that helps you in business.
I want to say my communication. I'm pretty strong in my communication. You might not think that's like a
No,
major
that's
skill, but
really valuable.
yeah, yeah, you got to be able to communicate in the field. Let your teammates know. Oh, this guy's he's coming on a blitz, or whether I should have ran a route a different way because the safety sat or the safety bailed. That kind of thing. But even communication on our team and with clients and being able to talk to people and relate and having those the difficult conversations sometimes when things might not be going the direction we need, or being able to praise people and say when people are doing a good job, or appreciating people for the things that they've done for you.
So I'm glad you mentioned something there. You said when things aren't going great, maybe having a tough conversation without giving any names, because we're not throwing anyone under the bus here on any of your teams. But can you think of a story where maybe you had to have a tough conversation and how did you deal with it with that strong communication skill?
Yeah, well, I won't throw anyone under the bus, but myself here maybe. The other day, I messed up a little bit. I wasn't delivering, fully understanding what our partnerships needed, and just having that conversation with myself and taking a step back and saying, hey, I'm not delivering to the best of my ability right now, and I need to take a step back and truly understand that this isn't just work for me. It's someone else's business, someone else's brand, and I think, just being able to take that step back and being humble enough to understand that I need to reflect my work, through other people's, aspirations and other people's, dreams that they carry out through their business. And yeah, I mean, it happens, and it's not something that is really acceptable with the line of work we're in. So I think just having that, that little hiccup that I had the other day. Definitely, sets you back a little bit. Not in the sense that we're not moving forward, just the sense that you really got to take pride in every ounce of work that you do.
So to maybe you could call that self-communication, I guess, some self-talk there that you were
Mhm.
just having a little chit chat with yourself. Did you then have a conversation with that partner that you were working with? How did you navigate through?
Absolutely, yes. We just let them know, like, hey, we apologize for the hiccup that we had there. Something that obviously didn't want to happen, but it did, and we take full ownership, full accountability for it. We're not going to let it happen again. But it's one of those things that it's having that line of communication, just understanding that things in life aren't always perfect and not always going to go how you plan, and being able to bounce off that and really try to correct things and correct that relationship because at the end of the day, our relationships are the most important part to us.
I think that's great. And it really does remind me of just athletes in general. You're going to have a bad play. You're going to have a bad game,
Hmm.
sometimes a bad season. And you have a choice to make. You can sit in that and say, like, we're terrible. We're not going to. And when that happens, your mindset is not going to help you move forward. Same thing with business. I mean, when you were talking, it was always almost making me think about how you would relate to a teammate too. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was texting one of our guys, Luca. He's my roommate at college and as well, and I wanted him to help with media icon, so I brought him on with us as our editor slash media guy. And I was talking about it. I was like, man, like I'm really upset. Like this is one of those mistakes that can't happen. And he's like, dude. Next play mentality. You're not going to hit a home run every time. So I just having that team and that support for sure definitely helps. But it's a good analogy that next play mentality. That's you
what
can
a
use that
great
with
thing
anything
for
in
my
life.
listeners to steal right there. Next play mentality. I think we hear that a lot, but just to even say it to yourself, like you had that little like self talk with yourself in that moment, whether you're running a business, whatever it is that you're doing, if maybe you're in high school, maybe you're in college, maybe you've just graduated, but even if you're just an athlete or you're a coach listening or a parent, I have kids, one who's in college, but the one who's still in high school and even the college one, when they're athletes. And whenever they make a mistake, even if their team played well and they won the game, a lot of times my kids anyway, I can't speak for everybody's kids, will focus on that. And I have to say, of course, I'm like trying to tell them this mindset stuff, but they're not going to listen to me so much as their mom, but that's just developmentally appropriate. But I have to say to them, you cannot sit in that next play. So if you said to yourself or a coach, if you share with your athletes, just simply say that next play, next play mentality, because that's how you move forward. Because what we focus on does become our reality. We'll think about football. There's two different ways to say it. Don't fumble the ball, hold the ball tight, right? And if you say don't fumble the ball, this is from the youth level all the way up. The kid is going to say to themselves in their brain, oh my God, I can't fumble. And they're more likely to fumble. Now, whereas if they're saying hold the ball tight, that's a different mindset and it's a different performance. So I love how that crosses over into business, next play mentality, because those who are my business listeners, we all know that it can be a roller coaster and you make mistakes. And the fact that you owned it is a true sign of leadership in my view. I'm just going to share something, Will. I hope you don't mind, but Will and
Go ahead.
Will and I were actually supposed to record right when his semester was ending, and he had a really busy move out, I believe it was. And he sent me a message, very apologetic, saying, I got to reschedule this. And I respected it because I wouldn't want him to come and rush to get on here and be, frazzled. It's a podcast, it's not like we're not closing deals today kind of thing. I respected that. And you were just honest with me. And I was like, yeah, we'll reschedule it when we can. And I think that your partnerships, which by the way, I'm stealing that. I'm going to start saying my partnerships, even when I say like, look at this client, I'm so excited for them. Because I co-create everything. Anyway, I'm going to move to a different area here. You also mentioned mentors a couple different times. You said people who have mentored me, and I'm grateful for my mentors, different things you said. Who would you say from high school or now when you're a collegiate athlete has been a mentor for you athletically first, and then we might go in some different directions?
That's a really good question. I guess athletically, there's a lot of people that I've looked up to. I think, mentorship, you might think, maybe an older individual. I would even say, just growing up with Tanner, our CEO here at Media Icon, just understanding that his work ethic has always been something that I've admired. The drive that he really works with and the passion that he does all his work with. I guess, that's been something I've always admired and, always tried to, instill in my work as well. And, obviously he's an incredible athlete on the field. He's Villanova's quarterback. He went D1.
We'll have to have him on the podcast too. Maybe both of you together. I would love to have just that conversation together. It could be cool.
Absolutely. We could definitely set that up. But yeah, he was the first Division I football player out of our high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean he really does it all. He got married at 18 right out of high school.
Really?
To one of my good friends, and he just had a baby. She's a beautiful baby girl.
Aw.
She's 3 months old. So and
That's
we're
awesome.
21. Yeah, we're 21 years old. So he's definitely someone that's played a big part in that. And I guess
What have you learned? What is one thing and I know this is a hard question because you and Tanner have, that athletic journey together and now you're working together in business. You have been working together for a long time. What's one thing? This is something that I really feel like I learned from Tanner. Just maybe it's not even business or athletically. It's just maybe something in life. What's something you learned that my listeners could also steal too?
Yeah, so I'm going to go totally away from business and sports here. We're both very big in our faith and our faith journey with becoming followers of Christ, and just understanding that none of this is possible without glorifying God and understanding that He blessed us and gave us all these gifts, and He continues to open all these doors every single day for us, whether it's business or athletically, giving us the talents to perform in the field and giving us the skills to really perform on the field as well. So. Yeah, I would definitely say, just understanding that, God is the center of our lives, and He's definitely instilled that in me and helped me understand, why that should be important to me.
I love it. That's such a great thing for him to share with you and for my listeners. No matter what or who you believe in, you do have to come back to what's the most important thing here. Right. It's great to hear Will being successful, Tanner, all those things that you just listed about his life. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. And you have to come back to, that you are grateful for these blessings and whatever it is, my listeners, that you believe in, lean into that because that really is what is most important when we come down to it. I actually say all the time to my own kids, they probably roll their eyes a lot, when you're an old person on your deathbed, like no one's going to say like, I should have sent more emails or I should have done this or that. They're going to talk about like those blessings and the relationships and being grateful and thankful, however you view it. Like just
Absolutely.
take a moment and think about that right now. I think that's really, really great. And I'm glad that you went totally not business and not athletics, because those things are cool. They're important. And of course, people tune in to listen to them, but that's not really what's most important. It's really
absolutely not. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So when you talked about your athletic journey, you were going into play college football. What year did you walk on for basketball? Was that freshman or when did you do that?
Yeah, so it was after my freshman year, going into my sophomore year. I walked on over the summer. I played with the summer league team out of
Okay.
Spooky Nook, and yeah, I mean, I played high school basketball. I loved it, and honestly, when I got to school, I was totally focused on football. I was really excited to get to play and everything, and then I started going to some of the basketball games in the off season. I was like, man, I really miss it. So I actually started as our women's team, a practice player.
Practice player, right.
Yeah. Our football head coach, he was talking to the women's basketball head coach, and she had asked if there were any former high school basketball players that could help them out in practice. So I was like, sure, why not get extra cardio in for me. And I realized how much I missed basketball, and I got to play in the main court, and I thought it'd be really cool to give it a shot. I'm grateful that Coach McAllister on the LVC basketball team, he was able to give me that opportunity, and I made the best of it, thankfully. But yeah, that was a really, really cool experience for me.
Very fun. Something connection here for us. I spent many days at Spooky Nook. My son was a basketball player, travel, like, the AAU teams, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be walking upstairs on the track, where you could look
Yep.
down all those different courts. I swear that I paid for parking and bracelets, and we would all be joking like, didn't I pay for this kid to be on this team? And now I'm paying for parking this. But
Mm-hmm.
Spooky Nook is actually a great place. I loved being there. I actually miss it as a sport parent. It was like,
I bet.
It was a cool place for tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I was just like having flashbacks of Spooky Nook days. So really cool. All right. So we're going to go to a different direction here. If you could give a tip for a student athlete who maybe is towards the end of their high school career, maybe they're junior, senior, and they're starting to think about, I want to play at the next level. What would you tell them?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that I've gone through, through my athletics, whether it's high school or college, and just having that the next play mentality, like we said earlier. But I think the biggest thing would just be, don't give up. It might sound cheesy, but that's definitely something that I've struggled with, and it's tough going from high school to college. Most of the time when you're going to play a college sport, you were the man or the girl at your school, and everyone looked up to you and praised you as being an athlete. And when you get to college, everyone was like that at their high school.
Right, everybody.
So exactly, everyone was that guy.
How did
It's
you deal with
definitely
that?
it's definitely humbling. It really is. It's humbling, but it's I've never been one to really gloat too much and think I'm the best. Just that's my opinion. Others might have a different opinion. I've always tried to keep my head on pretty level and understand that um, when the opportunity was given to me, I need to seize it. And if I don't, that's on me. It's nobody else's. So just understanding that those slight opportunities and those small chances, if you don't capitalize on them, you can't really blame anybody but yourself. Just never giving up and always understanding that there's going to be the next play that you'll be able to make a play, and understanding that it's not always going to be easy. It's going to be a fight, but you fought all the way to get there, so why don't you keep fighting until the end?
I love that. Did you know where you wanted to play? Did you have a lot of options, and how did you come up with your decision?
Yeah, I had a few offers out of high school, but I really I did all the college visits, the college tours, and I really just fell in love with our old head coaches, Coach Bueller's his beliefs in his system, and that everything is earned, nothing's given. He was a believer in God as well, so that was something that I definitely appreciated from him, and he it's actually funny. on my recruiting visit, my family came, my two younger brothers and my parents came, and I went and sat in his office when he was offering me, and he was getting all of my family's information. He was actually writing down my brothers' names and what sports they play, and to me that stood out,
Yeah.
because he didn't just care about me as a player and want me to go there. He cared about my younger brothers, who it's a huge inspiration for me to be able to continue to play and work hard for them. So I think that's really what sealed it for me. Not, maybe I like the uniforms or the locker room. It was just the fact that he cared enough to, write down my brothers' names and what their interests were and what they were looking for in a school. And that family mentality really meant a lot to me.
First off, I'm obsessed with him. Did he retire? You said our former coach.
He did, unfortunately. He did retire. His son is actually
Okay.
a college basketball player as well, so he wanted to spend more time watching his games. I totally understand.
Yeah, I respect that. That's really cool though, because sometimes, and not even just college, but we have kids here get recruited for different high schools even, and I'm right outside of Philly. So for the private schools, sometimes they're like transferred from the public. And coaches that like really care about their athletes, whether or not they're recruiting them or not, if they're just your player, you need to know them beyond the field, beyond the court, because like we were saying earlier, that's what matters most, the things in your life. So that's really cool that he wrote down your brother's names and realized what's important to you. And I love that you noticed it too, because it's easy for someone who's being recruited to be like, oh, this is awesome. I love this, which is cool. It's fun to have the uniform experience and see the locker rooms.
Absolutely.
Not saying people are going to send me messages like, well, I want that for my son. I get it. I get it. And you can have that too. I think it's an and both. When of course, you were seeing all those things. And then when he wrote that down, or whatever somebody does to make it personalized for you, I think that's really valuable. And a high school coach listening right now, you can do that. Did you have any time during your maybe youth career, high school career, where you had a coach that got to know the players and built that rapport? And do you remember anything like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was one coach in particular in youth, and I believe he ended up being an assistant on our high school staff as well. Carl Koch, he really touched my heart with that, and just really really coaching us to be men, not even football players. He would always throw in those quick tips on how to be a better man off the field, and be helping your mom out and helping your little brothers out, and being good to teachers and giving those side notes. He wasn't always about football, and that's something I definitely appreciated about him, and I can definitely look back and say he definitely influenced my life in that way.
Oh, I love him too. I'm obsessed with these people that were in your life. What great tips. And that doesn't take a lot of time. For my coaches that are listening, when I work with teams, sometimes they're like, we have this like issue with our team. There's some drama. And I'm like, well, tell me about them. Tell me about your team. And they start telling me all of the stats. And I love that. But I'm like, and tell me about your team. What's going on? If you don't know about your team, or you're not saying, I hope you're doing this for your mom or for your teachers, you're, as you just said, building better men or women, whatever you're coaching
right.
out there. You're missing the mark. These coaches need to be doing this. Did you say Coach Koch? Is that his last name?
Coach Koch, yep.
Yeah, so shout out to him and everyone else who's doing that, and steal that from Will, from his coaches, because that's how you win. When you build that rapport, that's how you send athletes on to the next level and become better men, because in the end, that's what we should want. Some people will go on to play professional, but most don't. So you want them to have those skills beyond their sport. So I love that.
Absolutely.
For you. That's really great. How about academically? Do you have any tips for my student athletes that you would say, as a college athlete, this is something I wish I knew when I was starting?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been, a big believer in studying. It's funny. My little brother, he goes to school, and he can just see it and know it right away. And I was never like that. I was always the kid that was writing a million flashcards and studying them over and over and over. So I think that's my dad instilled that in me as well. He's always harped on the grades, but it's true. I mean, you're really a student athlete. Student comes first, and at any level they'll preach that, especially in college. And if you can't help your team if you're not able to be on the field, and you can't be academically ineligible, it's a huge thing. It's pretty obvious, but some kids don't seem to understand that. But yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest tip is just tackle the same way you tackle sports. Tackle it head on, and to talk about football, tackle it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, take everything head on, right? But just understand it's a privilege, not a right, to be able to play sports. That's a lot of things our football coaches talk about, and we get to you know go to school there and play football as well. We don't have to, right? And they don't have to give us that opportunity if we're not performing in the classroom. So, just use the drive and determination that you have towards football and instill that in the classroom as well. And knowledge is really the thing that's going to set you apart in the workforce. Whether it's in high school, college, or even after.
That get to mentality is something that I lean into personally and highly recommend and teach it to other people. You can use I get to in any area of your life. I get
Mm-hmm.
to go to practice. Sometimes practice is tough, but we got to do it. I get to be here at college and do this work. You might not love every single thing you have to do in life, but you get to do it. There's plenty of people who don't. And you don't have to play in college, those kinds of things, but you get to. And I think when you can have that mindset switch from, I have to I get to, and a sense of gratitude, you start to be grateful for more things. And then it's just a better experience when you're really in that. I love that mentality. Pretty cool. And it's great tips for my student athletes, for everyone, really. Lean into I get to more often.
Absolutely.
Just see what happens. So I heard you mention your dad. Do you have any tips for parents of student athletes? I'll share a quick story that when my son was playing in high school, he was a freshman. I guess it was like COVID was like in a weird place and they had to wear masks as a basketball player. And it was insane. He was like sweating through the mask. We were allowed to go to home games, but not away games. It was so weird. And he said something and he goes, "This isn't about you." I'm like, uh-oh, what's he about to say to us? He was a freshman at the time and he's going to be a sophomore in college next year. So he said, "It's weird. I don't like being at a place where no one's there. I like the vibe of having the people there supporting us. And this isn't about you, but I really do like when I'm at an away school and there's nobody coming up to me saying, 'Hey, do this, do that,' like giving that unsolicited advice, because that happened to him. He was a pretty good basketball player. And even when he was little, random people would walk up to him and be like, 'Hey, Danny, you need to try to do this or do that.' And I would just be like, 'All right, or see you later,' but he's like, I don't miss that. So it was an interesting take on it. And I always think of it when I say, stop giving kids unsolicited advice. Do you have any advice for my parents of athletes who listen? Maybe your parents did something right or something that they shifted when you became an athlete in college that you would say, this has really been helpful or not so helpful.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big, family guy, and I think I could probably count on one hand how many games throughout my entire life that my parents weren't able to make. They've been in everything for me. They've supported me, in and out all the way through it, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. So I guess it doesn't even matter if I had 4 touchdowns or no touchdowns and I got benched. Just the fact that they were there for me. So I think especially my mom always even. After the games I played like crap, she's like, "Oh, you played so good." And I'm like, "Mom, no, I didn't, but thank you, I appreciate it."
Oh,
So it's
she's
just
a woman. I love that.
exactly, she really is. So I guess the biggest advice I can give is probably just be there for your student athlete. It's definitely helped me a lot. Get through it, and it's something I'll definitely appreciate. And I'll never forget.
Yeah, showing up matters. It really
It
does.
does.
It does. So thank you to your mom and dad too for that, because I know how busy that is as a sport parent, and we get to. There's another one. We get to go to those games, and I miss it now. When my daughter gave up, she just is a track runner all 3 seasons, and I'm like, I miss field hockey a little bit. I love being at track. It's different. Cross country, she's like out in the woods. I'm like, good luck, and then I don't see her till she gets back. But you do miss those things when your kids get older, and so we get to, parents, we get to. I'm stealing that from you, Will, for this too now. So thank you to your parents and everyone who shows up from the time they're little all the way through. So very cool. So Will, do you have any advice? We're going to go back to what you do professionally. What would you tell us? Some advice before we wrap up the show here for social media. If you could tell someone who's like, oh, I'm just trying to figure this out. Maybe there's somebody who's a small business and they're trying to get it out there. Should they be LinkedIn, Instagram, and what should they be doing? What do you think? What are you going to throw at them?
Absolutely, yes. I think for social media wise, Instagram is a great tool to grow your small business, and consistency is key with it. But also, don't be putting content out there just to make a post. I'd rather see someone miss a post just to say they got it out, rather than really take the time to dive into it, and really try to let their audience get something out of it, right? Whether it's teaching them about a lesson, or showing them a product or something like that. Really make sure it counts and it matters towards your brand. But consistency is definitely key as well. And I think the biggest platforms that we really like to harp on right now anyway are Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. YouTube's a great one for it. So as long as you keep showing up every day, and have that get to mentality,
Yeah, good point.
you're going to be okay. You're going to start to grow your personal brand, and that's definitely something that we love to strategize with, and help our our partnerships with that all the time.
Love it. And I feel good about myself right now because those are the three I'm focusing on. LinkedIn,
Awesome.
Instagram. I just feel like I kind of know what I'm doing there, but not that I have a million followers. I call myself a impactor. I'm like, I'm not trying to be an influencer. Honestly, too, though, I will say that I am trying to be intentional with those posts, and I do make money, even though I'm not, millions and millions of followers. So, and then YouTube, I've just recently gotten into, and it actually is working too. People are finding me, so that's a good thing. So
Awesome.
you just made me feel like I'm a little bit better, more aligned. Like maybe I am doing the right thing. I question myself sometimes. So thank you for sharing that for everybody. And those who are like, what should I be doing? Maybe those are your three. While we're here, this is a good time for me to say this. How could someone reach out to you, Tanner, and the whole group so that they could work with you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, our media icon page. If you go to the about, or the people, you'll be able to find us under there as well. My email is all over my LinkedIn. So yeah, it's probably the best way to reach me.
Okay, cool. And everyone who's listening, I'm going to drop that in the show notes for you here. So it'll take you right there. And that's actually going to help SEO, which we'll know how that works. So if you are looking to connect with them, I think you should. I'm telling you that I'm following along, stealing some tips, and is working. And we might have to set up a meeting at some point when I'm ready to do all that stuff. But go connect with them. Click on the link below, follow, start to learn, set up a meeting with them. They're the experts. They know what's going on out there. And, don't think you're an expert in everything. That's one thing I learned within my business. In the beginning, I tried to do everything by myself, and I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I trying to do it? I need to go to someone who's an expert. So that's just my little TED talk for everybody who's trying to do their business. But all right, so we're going to go to our last question that I ask everyone for season 5. And the question is, if you were in a movie called The Champion Within, and it was a cliffhanger moment in the movie, screen goes to black, and everybody's in the theater like, what? They're screaming things. Maybe they're hashtagging on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all the places we just talked about. What do they want you to do next?
That's a great question. I was trying to dive into a little bit, before, and honestly, I'm just going to say, seeing where I go to as a man here, as I start to grow up and eventually get married and start my own family, which is a big aspiration of mine. Definitely looking to grow my relationship closer with God. And even in the business world, I know Tan and I have talked a bunch. We have a lot of different aspirations outside of media icon that we love to be able to tackle eventually in our lives, whether it's real estate or continuing to scale media icon as much as we can and help as many people out as we can. And just continuing to stay close to my family, stay close to my friends, and continue to increase my knowledge, and learn as much as I can and impact as many people's lives as I can.
So they want that holistic thing for you that they're hoping it all works out. Will, I gotta say, you've been telling me all these things I've been watching, and I feel like that's gonna happen, whether or not it's this movie scenario or not. I mean, you're aligned with everything and exactly where you're meant to be is what I always think. And we keep leaning into I get to, right? I'm excited for you.
Exactly.
Excited for the journey. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your journey in athletics, academics, and in the business world. I really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to tell my listeners before we go?
Yeah, I would just say, just to continue to put your head down and grind every single day. It's not going to be easy getting up every day, and you're not always going to have the motivation to, keep going and doing what you want to do. But I like to say, that thing that's in the back of your mind that you don't want to do, that's probably the thing that you have to do, right? It's probably the thing that you should do the most. I think there's a saying, eat the lima beans first. Get the hard stuff out of the way, right at the beginning of the day, and then it'll make your life a whole lot easier.
You dropped a lot of little golden nuggets today. I'm going to have some hard times figuring out some quotes to put up there. We might be putting a lot out there. So thank you for that. I love that. That's the perfect way to end. So thank you again, Will, for being with us today. And everyone who's been listening to us, I hope you have an amazing rest of your week and just go out there, eat the lima beans, and then go crush your goals. Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.